Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of DNC, Dirt Nap City, the internet show about interesting people who are dead. Dead people who are interesting. Is that the same? People who are now dead that were interesting, or some people that weren't interesting until they were dead, or some people that weren't dead until they got to be interesting.
Yeah. There's lots of paths you can take to get there.
Right. Never anybody that's alive and never anybody that's boring.
Do you think I'll be more interesting when I'm dead?
Time will tell, man.
Hopefully a long time.
I think most of us are more interesting when we're alive.
Yeah, that's true.
Less interesting once we pass. But every now and then you'll get somebody like a Betsy Ross who was kind of a drip until she died, and then people started making up stories about her.
Yeah. And I guess
if you haven't listened to, go back and listen to the Betsy Ross fiasco.
Yeah, it really was eye-opening in so many ways.
That's when this show started getting controversial. That's when we started tackling, topics that were,
You know what they say, what you reap is what you sow. You get it? So
how does that apply?
Betsy Ross, so.
Oh, I get it. Wow.
Sorry.
Wow.
Well, what are you going to talk about today, Alex?
So today I'm going to talk about somebody that you probably haven't heard of. Well, maybe you have.
Well, that's not part of the deal. It's supposed to be someone I've heard of, but just don't know much about.
That might be true. The internet talks about this person quite a bit. There are kind of memes about this guy, but the reason you might not have heard of him is because he was a monarch, and they kind of all run together in a lot of people's minds.
But he was a real person.
Oh yeah. Hard to keep them all,
okay.
track. I think the only monarch we've done so far has been King Henry VIII, right?
Yeah. That's the only one that comes to mind. Was he English?
No.
No.
Was
he? What country?
Well, Spain.
Ferdinand?
No, but he was actually related to Ferdinand. Yeah, they all kind of run together, all these guys.
Yeah.
But this guy was consequential because if it wasn't for him, I mean, he's kind of the reason that Europe today exists the way it does, in nice kind of neat little packaged countries like France and Italy and Germany and Spain. And it wasn't always like that. And it wasn't. And you might have thought that all that came to be because of wars, but it's not necessarily the case. So we're going to talk about some of that. This was from a long time ago. This is not 20th century stuff for me. I'm going outside my comfort zone, and we're talking about the late 1600s. Long time ago.
Okay. Well, did he have something to do with Columbus?
No, that was in the late 1400s.
Oh yeah, right. 1492.
A couple hundred years after that.
Okay, so in between Henry VIII and Columbus.
He was born in 1661 in Madrid.
Okay.
And he died in 1700 in Madrid in the exact same place, in the same palace. And barely ever got out of the side of that.
So
palace,
wait, 1661 to 1700?
Yep.
So 39 years old.
Yep.
Didn't even make it to 40. Wow.
No. And it's a kind of a miracle that he lasted that long because he was a very sickly person.
Sickly monarch.
We're going to talk today about King Charles II of Spain.
Okay, yeah, very, very. First of all, Charles. Maybe it's Charles. Charles. I mean, that's a very English name to me, not a Spanish name.
I don't know if he went by Carlos, because that would be kind of the Spanish version of that now. But everything I ever seen is that it's King Charles, but it could have been Carlos actually.
Yeah.
But so the reason that he was so important to us now is because monarchies back then were kind of all interrelated, literally interrelated.
Yeah, lots of marriages
Oh,
for
dude,
dynasties and yeah.
lots of inbreeding. Let's just say it.
Okay.
Basically, imagine if your family tree was a circle, and that's how the the monarchies in Europe were back in the day. They
You could
wanted
count
to
the
keep the
rings.
bloodline.
Yeah.
Dude, they wanted to keep the bloodlines pure. So there was a lot of intermarrying. And I'm going to talk a lot about that
Okay.
because that's interesting to me. And because of all the inbreeding, we ended up with this person who was very, very um, sick. We're not going to dwell too much on that part of it. But he had a very bizarre life. And historians today either even debate whether the guy was cursed or poisoned or just super overbred. But he was not a healthy person, and because of that, he ended up kind of ending the European rule as we know it, reshuffled the cards, and it kind of ended up being what we have today. Like I said, he kind of never left the palace. He every now and then he'd go out because that was part of his duties, but basically lived and died in the same palace in Madrid.
Wow.
He was like isn't that veal calves? Isn't that what they do?
They try to use their muscles as little as possible. Okay. So
his nickname was El Hechizado.
El
You know what that
Hechizado. Itchy son.
The Bewitched.
Ah, okay. I did not know that.
And people thought he was possessed. He thought he was possessed. He thought he was possessed by 70,000 devils.
That's a lot.
The court used to bring in exorcists to try to fix him because he was not a well person. So let's just get into this. So his dad was Philip IV, and his mom was Mariana of Austria.
Okay.
So his dad was the king of Spain. His mom was from Austria. I'll explain all that. How could you have a dad who's the king of Spain and a mom from Austria? I'll explain all that in a second. But he couldn't walk or talk until he was 4 years old. He had real developmental
late bloomer.
But developmentally disabled is how we would call it. Now he had chronic digestive problems and seizures and infections. But when he was 4 years old, his dad died, and all of a sudden he became king at 4 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And that's how they rolled back then.
Barely able to walk at that point.
They do not care the monarchies do not care how old you are. They just care that you're a male.
Right.
And that you're next in line.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so he had 2 marriages. He never had any children. And because of that caused this monarchy crisis and triggered the War of Spanish Succession, which set up kind of what we have today. If you think about Europe back then, it was like it's not what we think of today. Spain was a big empire. So Spain consisted of Spain and then some of Italy, the Americas, right? Like Florida was part of Spain then, the Philippines. They had a big empire. And then you had Austria. And Austria was the center of the Holy Roman Empire. So Spain and Austria kind of ran the world back then. And the Austrian part was called the Habsburgs.
Okay.
The Habsburgs.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And they kind of ran Central Europe. And then at the time, too, that France was starting to be a superpower with Louis XIV. So you had Spain, you had Austria, you had France. Those were the 3 big superpowers. Germany and Italy were just like patchworks of different states, but they weren't their own countries.
Right.
And Britain wasn't really dominant yet in the late 1600s.
Okay.
So Europe was just a bunch of dynasties and a few like outposts of different countries. His face has what they call, if you've heard of Habsburg, you may have heard of the Habsburg jaw. Have you ever heard of the Habsburg jaw?
Never heard of that one. Is that like a severe look? Didn't you describe
Yeah,
some
it is.
people as
Yeah,
severe?
very severe. So the Habsburg jaw is a severely protruding jaw, and sometimes with a receding upper jaw.
You mean
Okay.
like a kind of Monty Burns kind of chin?
Yeah, kind of an underbite, I guess I would say, and sometimes with an overbite, but really, really severe.
Okay.
And it's funny because you kind of you just talk about Mr. Burns, and sometimes we talk about rich people having kind of these things, but that trope becomes from royalty because this Habsburg jaw was something that
Was common.
was was common, but among royalty.
Ah,
But it was really not an attractive look, and it was kind of almost a deformity, you might say. In his case, it was definitely a deformity. It was from inbreeding, and he couldn't chew properly, or he couldn't even speak properly because this jaw was so severe.
wow.
They actually use pictures of him in medical textbooks these days when they talk about genetics and when they talk about inbreeding. That this is one of the big examples of
Wow.
this Habsburg jaw, and people noticed this right from the start. Right when he was a baby, he was like too weak to suckle.
Wow. That's like the ultimate insult, that would be, if you were doing the dozens and you were trying to put somebody down, yeah, you're too weak to suckle.
It's the title of my new book. He was a little odd. Besides these physical issues that he had, he banned people from wearing wigs.
I thought everybody
And
wore
back
wigs.
then, everybody wore wigs back then. But he said that God made enough hair. We don't need wigs.
I kind of agree.
And you know what?
I kind of agree.
I was going to say that's very
2025.
apt,
Yeah. He was woke. He was the woke Habsburg jaw.
So check this out. When he died, his autopsy. So you got to understand, medieval doctors back then were kind of known for their writing nonsense and writing like trying to outdo each other. So this is the official autopsy. Again, this is the 1600s. They said that his heart was the size of a grain of pepper.
Okay.
And his lungs were corroded, his intestines were rotted, and his testicle was as black as coal, and his blood looked like black sludge.
Wow.
Almost like you're describing the Grinch.
Yeah. And I mean, some sort of goblin or troll or something like that. That's awful.
Now, I'm sure that most of that was hyperbole. I'm sure his heart was bigger than a grain of pepper.
If he was, if he had been alive for any period of time, it had to be, right?
I don't know. This is how the medical examiners wrote autopsies back then. So, like I said, the Habsburgs controlled Spain, Austria, the Roman Empire, a little bit of Italy, or a lot of Italy, and then like the Spanish Netherlands, which is like Belgium area.
Okay.
But they didn't get all that area by conquest and war like you might think. They got all that area by marrying cousins strategically for centuries.
Okay.
They would make sure that they kept that, like, so people were marrying, a lot of uncles were marrying nieces,
Yeah.
and so a lot of times the king of Spain and the king of Austria were usually very closely related. Sometimes they were brothers, sometimes they were like uncle nephew, sometimes they were the same person. But Spain and Austria, even though those were the two parts that ruled Europe, they made sure that they were kind of closely aligned. That goes back to Charles V in 1500. He kind of inherited Spain and Austria and the Roman Empire. It was so much land for him. It was so big that he split it in half, and he gave half to his brother, Ferdinand.
Okay.
And so Ferdinand got Austria and the Roman Empire, and then his son Philip II got Spain. So that kind of started with Charles V. He split it up, and then you had Austria and Spain. So now we have two branches of Habsburgs, right? The Spanish branch and the Austrian branch. And then that lineage had like uncles marrying nieces for generations.
Wow. Well, what about nephews marrying aunts? Did that ever happen?
No, that didn't happen.
Only
It
what
was
about?
always older men and younger women.
Oh, okay, okay.
Girls probably actually. These two branches just kept marrying each other to keep that bloodline pure. So Charles's dad was the king of Spain, but his mom was actually his dad's niece, and she was from the Austrian side. So that's how they keep that going.
Oh, okay, okay. Wow.
So
Yeah.
geneticists today say that he was more inbred, Charles was more inbred than if his parents had actually been siblings, because it had been 200 years
Of
of
doing
that
that.
cycle
Yeah.
of different kinds of inbreeding. In
Hen-
fact, the different kind of inbreeding, there's uncle nieces, and then there's cousins marrying cousins,
Kissing
and
cousins.
then there's double cousin marriages. Do you know what a double cousin marriage is?
Is that like 7 brides for 7 brothers?
Dude, so check this out. So you have two siblings from one family marry two siblings from another family. Okay. So I marry your
Wow.
sister and you marry my sister. Okay. And then we both have kids, and then those kids marry each other.
Oh, wow.
Now you've got a double cousin marriage.
And hence
So the
the
kids, the
hence
kids share both sets of grandparents.
hence the too weak to suckle part.
So this was going on for 16 generations before Charles came along, and all of the genetic that we didn't know about that back then, but all the genetic abnormalities,
Like the heart the size of a
maladies,
pepper.
sicknesses,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Shriveled,
He
shrunken
basically
testicles, all of that.
he would basically get the same piece of DNA from both sides of the family dozens of times.
Yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't good.
Well, and that's
everything we know about
probably why
genetics now.
probably why he couldn't reproduce, right? That's probably a good thing that he couldn't reproduce.
Yeah, at some time nature had to catch up and say enough.
Enough. Yeah, stop. This ain't the Brady
So like
Bunch.
right. So like I said, it's 1665. His dad dies suddenly, and he's 4 years old, and he can't walk or talk. He becomes king. So his mom ruled in his name until he was about 14. She really kept doing it into his adulthood, and she was very controlling, kind of like a helicopter mom, I suppose. And she thought Charles was cursed by the devil, and they kept bringing in all these exorcists. But realized the people in Spain were really worried because they see this weakened king, and they know that the empire can weaken, and then that makes them vulnerable to. So it was very kind of a tough time in Spain when you've got this leader, and that's probably why they were ripe to kind of get to collapse, is because they just didn't have a very strong leader. Now you might wonder what language these people spoke, right? You got Spanish and Austrian, and so the Spanish ones would speak like Castilian Spanish.
Okay.
And the Austrians would speak German.
Right.
And then whenever they get together to talk, they would speak Latin.
Oh, yeah, of course. I guess that's the commonality.
I suppose. I mean, they didn't have, that was kind of the equivalent of English today, wherever that's kind of the universal language that a lot of people rely on.
Right.
But back then it was Latin that they all learned. Now in the royal people, I mean, the common people didn't do this. They didn't have any reason to, speak the other languages, but the royals had to kind of speak a lot of different languages and dialects. And so there was traces of Italian and, German and all the different dialects, and Czech and all these different things coming out. But basically they would speak to each other in Latin.
Kind of the same sort of inbreeding going on with the language.
Yeah, exactly. So he starts walking and talking, and he's the king now, but he has no real formal schooling. They keep him isolated because he's so damn sick. He's not allowed to play with other kids. It's just a parade of doctors and priests and
exorcists,
weird remedies and exorcisms going on, and exorcists coming in, and it's just, that's his life.
Wow.
Spain's starting to panic about his future. He is 18 years old, and he marries Marie Louise d'Orleans, the niece of Louis XIV. So now we're bringing the French part. Remember, I mentioned they were a third country, right?
And at least that's some fresh blood, right?
Sure. Now she's really charismatic, really beautiful, but she comes to Spain and she's horrified at the Spanish life, the court life in Spanish, and she realizes this husband she's got is way too sick to father a child.
Yeah.
And she gets so stressed out about it that she dies at 26 years old from stress, and they say like anorexia even.
What did the coroner or the autopsy have to say about that, about her? What did her bowels look like?
The fact that
her heart,
the fact that they say that she was 26 and she died of stress tells you, all you need to know about.
Yeah, true.
And she probably had, compared to other people in the country, she probably had a pretty great life other than, the pressure of having to father a child with this sick guy. I mean,
their husband was too weak to suckle.
Yeah. True. So now the citizens of Spain are really worried. Maybe this guy's going to go childless. And then what happens to us as a country? Because it's one thing if you can't have any boys, but if you can't have any kids, it puts your whole country in crisis. The monarchy is a strange thing.
Sure.
Man. So in the 1680s now, he starts developing chronic stomach issues. He's going blind intermittently now too. And again, this isn't his fault, man. This is just he's the victim of this inbreeding, this hundreds of years of inbreeding. Yeah. He's just kind of you'll see a lot of stuff of people making fun of him on the internet because of the way he looked and everything. And I didn't feel like that was right to bring to the table here. Cause I mean, it wasn't just that he was a weirdo. I mean, he was really disabled in a lot of ways, and he was totally a victim of just this system that they had. Feel really bad for the guy. Well, they keep bringing in exorcists. They're convinced that he's cursed. Spain is starting to get bankrupt. Militarily, they're pretty weak because they just don't have really anybody in charge, and they fix him up with another woman named Maria Anna of Neuburg, Neuburg is a famously, I mean, I didn't know it was famous, but back then it was a famously fertile German family.
Okay. Like rabbits.
Famously fertile.
Hashtag famously fertile.
Right. I think that'd be a good name for like some sort of clinic, like a famously fertile.
Right. Welcome to the famously fertile clinic.
I mean, if it's good enough for famous footwear, right? Isn't that a place?
Yeah, sure. Famous and fabulous.
So, Maria Anna is his new wife. And like I said, they bring in, she's basically like the most fertile family. I mean, they don't know if she's fertile, obviously, but
her family's
very fertile.
She comes from a long line.
Well, he just can't. She doesn't take her long to figure out this guy can't reproduce. But she kind of becomes a political operator, kind of behind the scenes. She's, pulling the strings and running the country, and kind of enjoys that. But by 1699, he's 38 years old. He can barely walk. He's nearly blind, swollen. He's emaciated. He's vomiting all the time. He thinks he's possessed by demons. His teeth are falling out. His hair is falling out. He can't digest food.
Yeah. My goodness.
You've only had some of those things on that list, but he had all of them.
Yeah. That's a rough life.
So the next year he dies, and he wills the entire Spanish Empire to a French prince from the Bourbon family.
Oh, Will Smith, the French Prince of Bel-Air?
French prince, not fresh prince.
Oh, okay.
And this guy was Philip of Anjou.
Anjou.
Philip.
Now that's a sauce, Anjou. Right? It's like you dip your meat in it.
That's Anjou. Anjou.
Oh.
This is Anjou.
Oh, similar.
So this was his decision. Like he had to figure out, all right, basically there were two dynasties ruling Spain. It was the Austrian Habsburgs. That was his mom's family. and then the French Bourbons or Bourbons, and that was Louis the 14th's family. And the only Habsburg option was this guy, King Charles of Austria, and Spain didn't want any more Austrian control. So really the only option left was Louis the 14th's guy, Philippe. France was the strongest power in Europe by now. And Louis the 14th was actually married to Charles's sister, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
We just keep going around and around.
Imagine what Christmas was like, or Thanksgiving, around that table.
Gosh. Yet they have to speak Latin because none of them speak the same language.
Yeah.
That's the funny part. They're all related to each other, but Philippe of Anjou's grandma was Charles's aunt.
Okay.
This is why it's so. Can you imagine going to school and trying to learn about all this?
Trying to draw the family tree out of this? Yes.
And to this day, though, the Bourbons are still part of the Spanish monarchy. Like there's a king of Spain now, and he's a Bourbon. He's from that. So that succession has gone down to this day. Well, this triggered what we call the War of Spanish Succession. It lasted 13 years, and it was basically everybody was fighting in Europe. It was France and Austria and Britain and the Netherlands, and they were all fighting to kind of redraw the European map, which looks remarkably similar to what it does today, other than places that it was maybe redrawn after World War I and II. But basically, it's recognizable where it wouldn't have been recognizable prior to Charles dying. So that was the big contribution that this guy made. By his dying, it kind of shook up the whole thing. Also, it kind of made the rest of the world look at, or the other monarchies in the world look at inbreeding, taking another look at it. And
so they started to put two and two together about that at this point? Mm-hmm. They were realizing...
They didn't really know about genetics, but they knew that something might not be right. There are other examples in other monarchies of, things like hemophilia, for example, and they call that the royal disease. Have you ever heard that called the royal disease?
No, it's something to do with your blood, right?
Right. It's a blood disorder. And in the UK, all the royals had it. And I think there was another country, I can't remember which one, I don't remember, that also had hemophilia in the royal line. But that's not from inbreeding. That's just a genetic trait that's passed down through generations.
They call it it's just royals with boils.
Yeah. No, it's not. But so that wasn't like Charles, where it was actually like consequence of inbreeding. Those are just like diseases that you get that are passed down, and there's some of those that royals have that pass down, but Spain had it the worst because they had all those double cousin marriages and uncle niece marriages, and for 16 generations they were having that passed down. But for the most part, in the last century, these places that still have monarchies would go outside the family to marry now. So if you look at Meghan Markle and places, people like that are just like sometimes commoners, or Princess Diana, right? Like she wasn't a commoner.
Yeah.
She was still like,
but she wasn't part of the royal family.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Now in our own country, we had, the Roosevelts were cousins, remember?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's lots of them.
Yeah, but and then I'd be surprised if some of the Kennedys weren't that way also.
True.
So there's always a sense for exclusivity of people that are in the upper crust to keep the bloodlines pure. But
the Targaryens on Game of Thrones.
Really, that's fiction though, right?
They were the dragon people, yeah, but they all inbred.
Yeah, I guess there's a pull to keep the bloodlines pure. And when you do that, you have nature saying, wait a minute, you shouldn't be doing that. And here's the consequences of that. So there's lessons to be learned from all that. But I thought it was interesting that because of this genetic malady, we ended up redrawing the entire world, power map.
Yeah. Yeah. Charles. So which Charles? Charles V? Charles II?
The one we've been talking about for the last half hour? Charles II.
Charles II. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Carlos Segundo.
Segundo. Oh man, that's a rough life. And I agree with you. He probably was more of a victim than the perpetrator of this. And unfortunately, I think it's pretty easy for people to dislike people in power right away, just because, they see them as almost not human. And back then they were considered almost chosen by God, right? And so why did God choose this weak teat of a man?
Yeah. It just makes you realize how lucky we are to live when we do, and we don't aren't ruled by things like that, where people are just like, we don't know why this person's in charge. They're 4 years old, but that's just the rules.
That's just the way it goes.
You could be a newborn. You could be a newborn and you're the king. And that's just the way it is.
Or you could have the opposite problem of too old.
Sure. Yeah. Somebody's just like senile and they won't go away. And we have to wait until they die. And then we have to see what male heirs they have. And it seems a lot of pressure too for, we talked about this a little with King Henry VIII. I mean, it just all becomes about breeding.
Yeah.
And having offspring, and those poor women who have that kind of stress that I have to give him a son. And if I don't, he's going to chop my head off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different time, I suppose, huh?
Too weak to suckle.
Well, that's all I have really for this character, Charles II. I thought that it wouldn't be that our kind of our canon wouldn't be complete without learning a little bit about somebody who changed the course of the world geography.
Yeah. No, that was interesting and lots of things to consider, lots to unpack, Alex. So thank you for sharing.
Little Charles in the cradle, crown too big for his brow. Nurses whisper in the shadows, is he strong? Will he stand? Will he ever take a bow? Silk so heavy on such narrow shoulders. Oh, King Charles II of Spain, born to wear gold, built on old pain, Habsburg jaw, and a borrowed throne, the heir who never was on a seat of stone. Doctors count every finger, every toe, every sigh.
Say he's sorry, given to suckle.
Court scribes dip their quills, let the rumors fly, while the candles flicker over marble. Two brides in brocade, two weddings in white, trumpets bright over whispered dread. They toast to a cradle that stays empty each night. Threads of a dynasty coming undone instead.
One lonely star over Europe's map, lines were drawn with each anxious nap.
One testicle, one fragile king, one missing child. And all of history tells just a little